We've talked success, we've talked failures. I think we've both experienced both as we've helped customers get into the cloud. One of the things we really help customers with here at Nutanix, which is why I'm so excited about the partnership with Versant, is that we're helping customers, I think a little bit differently about their cloud journey.
This is the Nutanix Cloud Interlock podcast with your host, Michael Carr.
Welcome back to Nutanix Cloud Interlock. Joining me today is Tim Hope from Versant. He's the CTO of Versant. He's been with them for a number of years and in the industry helping enterprise customers transform and specifically move to cloud. Tim, thanks for joining me today.
It's great to be here.
Tim, we're talking all things transformation today, cloud or not. Talk us through something that comes top of mind to you on a successful transformation.
We see so many customers be successful with their cloud transformation. And what we see is where they really think about the business goals and the business benefits. We've seen the cloud market mature a lot where it was about, let's move a single app to the cloud, where now it's really about how do we move the whole enterprise. I think the conversation's kind of changed about how do we enable the enterprise. And as customers go on this transformational journey, the successful ones really focus on planning. What is the goal? Like, what am I trying to achieve? Do I need a migration? Do I need a data center exit? Do I need a platform to enable innovation? So having that really clear goal and positioning up front helps to set the project off on the right track. The second thing I really think about that customers who succeed do well is they spend time on mobilization. They spend time on those foundations. There's a change factor here. You want to make sure you're set up for success. So in the cloud, automation is really important. How do you make sure you're enabling your teams for automation? How do you make sure you've got the right connectivity patterns there? Spending a bit of time working through that, it gives a really strong foundation to then allow the business to adopt, whether it's a rapid migration, whether it's modernization activities, or it's a single use case for digital transformation. Taking that journey, planning it, and then feeding one to the other, but having that really clear goal of what needs to be achieved. Well, I see customers when they struggle, they try and take on too much at once. Like, I want to modernize, I want to migrate, I want to digitally transform. It starts to kind of muddy the focus. Like, cloud is a transformational for a business as a whole. So keeping focus on the program, showing successes early and then often builds that kind of confidence, builds that kind of win themes, gives us the business the benefit back in, and then they kind of reinvest on it. So really the planning is critically important.
Yeah, and I think it sort of my successful journeys to cloud that I've seen as well been very similar. Like we've definitely seen, and probably over COVID more than anything, a lot of organizations have to move in anger to the cloud. Maybe it's supply chain issues and they couldn't fulfill on premises. Or a lot of the time it was done from, I see a shiny new toy in cloud and I really want to take advantage of that. But if you really want to transform the business, taking a step back from those individual technology silos and looking at the business outcomes and objectives that you're trying to achieve through that cloud transformation, the journey can be more successful. Tim, we've seen customers have great success when they plan, they set business objectives and goals, they have iterative steps and wins along the way. I see sometimes unsuccessful programs where they've rushed in, again, linking back to not having that planning done right, which leads to things like bimodal operations, and you've got two really distinct teams running, and especially around, unknown procurement cycles. So you're trying to get your journey into cloud. Halfway through, you maybe haven't migrated enough in, and then all of a sudden you've got a hardware renewal or a software renewal, and that just sets that whole program right back to the start. Is there something that stands out to you where a customer maybe made the wrong choice or where you think customers really need to focus on and that they haven't and it hasn't worked out well as they've moved into the cloud?
It's a really interesting question. Often what I see is customers move to the cloud for several reasons. If you're moving for reasons of cost savings, like you just want straight cost out, you tend to kind of be less satisfied with the outcome. It's not that you won't get cost savings, but you're not thinking about how am I going to change my process? How do I activate on those cost savings? Yeah. I want to be able to respond to the market. I want to be able to respond to my internal needs. I want to start to activate on new technology faster into the business. So you can move for agility, but it doesn't kind of come out of the box. So you actually need to put some effort into how am I going to enable agility for my organization? How am I going to control the costs? How am I going to put in processes around FinOps? Am I going to put in space for people to innovate? So you kind of, if you're thinking you're going to get it automatically, I think it's a platform to enable it, but you've got to put your business context, your organization structures around it. Am I going to set up a platform team? Am I going to retrain my people and start to enable them so they feel empowered to support the customers? If you don't start to train your people, or you think you're going to kind of like move them around, or they're not going to be relevant, like you start to kind of get resistance inside the organization. Yeah. What I generally find is like most people have worked in technology, they've seen many technology changes. Cloud is the next evolution of that. And a lot of them want to go along with that journey. So spending time on training them, making sure they understand it, helping to develop skills in the market for your organization. It helps to make sure you don't get resistance, or you don't get blockers, or people understand how to solve those problems on the ground. They kind of see the big things we see is like cost issues. So I've moved to the cloud. Is costing me more than I thought it was going to be. Yeah. And then they kind of think, well, maybe I should move back. I kind of always say to customers, like, once you're in the cloud, that's day one. Yeah. What you need to do is start to think about, how do I change my processes to activate on that new platform that's going to allow me to modernize and reduce my costs, but now I have to kind of work through that. Or if I've got agility and I want to activate it into organization, are my processes set up for agility? Am I enabling my developers? Am I enabling my business users with the capability to go and experiment, to go and try, to move fast, to fail quickly? I think spending the time on those processes and the kind of FinOps component around it helps the customers to get success. Customers who think that I'm going to move to the cloud, it's like a data center, it's just done. That's where we kind of see the failures.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing it as well from a perspective of organizations not really understanding the complexities around the either org restructure, change in roles, change in processes. With that, like they're consistently focusing on the technology stack, and that may be, I'm now going to spend 7 months just trying to find out which apps I'm going to modernize. Rather than saying, okay, we've got a program team running that side of it, and then we've got another program team that are looking at it, FinOps as a service. How am I now going to get transparency across everything? So do you think that people and customers aren't really spending enough time to understand what that new business process model or operational model looks like in the cloud before they start the journey?
I don't think they need to spend too much time before they start the journey. I think there's some really great constructs coming out of the market. So at the start of cloud, like a lot of the work was kind of the DevOps construct. Let's just give all the control to one team and let them kind of run their cloud journey. We saw that kind of eventuate by you get kind of security risks coming through. It's really hard to kind of keep up with business capability because you can't start to support operations. Sometimes we see it on the other side where it's very operational heavy and you're not doing the innovation. Constructs coming out in the market about, like, let's set up a platform team. How does the infrastructure and security team transform into a platform team with great operational processes? How did then have your product teams working on top to activate it? It's more about how do you kind of move momentum towards these new models, and how does it work inside an enterprise? I think it's kind of quite easy to go, I'm going to do cloud for my single app. When you start to think, well, how do I work in an enterprise? I've got multiple apps, I've got legacy apps, I've got line of business, I've got like complex environments. You need to have the construct that matches for your organization. So you just need to know, where am I going to put the skills? How are they going to work together? Start to think of more like a service design or process. Like, how does the process move through the organization? Where do I need to go and rightly challenge those processes? It's not about throwing it out and starting it again. It's more about, well, where's the broken chain? Where's the stress coming in the team? Where are things slowing down? Now, how do I go and address that and challenge the process with the new technology you have? Because as technology comes, it means the processes that used to run can change and adapt to what you have from a technology point of view. It becomes a very like cyclical cycle.
We've talked success, we've talked failures. I think we've both experienced both as we've helped customers get into the cloud. One of the things we really help customers with here at Nutanix, which is why I'm so excited about the partnership with Versant, is that we're helping customers, I think a little bit differently about their cloud journey. We're finding them get into what I like to call, decision deadlock, where they're trying to boil the ocean with 10,000 applications. How am I going to modernize those and which ones go to SaaS? We're saying just think a little bit differently, because if you get that, you can often stall your cloud program halfway through the journey. So if you take an approach of migrate and then modernize, specifically for a large number of the COTS applications or legacy applications, you can get more workloads into the cloud faster. So you're starting to see those economic benefits immediately, and then you can meaningfully decommission on premises. So you're not stuck halfway through with having to renew license subscriptions or refresh hardware on premises. What are your thoughts around that, and how Nutanix and Versant are going to work together to help our customers move forward?
I kind of see two approaches that customers take. There's kind of the infrastructure transformation. Hey, I'm going to bring their cloud in, I'm going to transform it. And I'm kind of like, I'm looking upwards at the servers and I'm saying, well, how am I going to move this? What's on there? And then there's more the application. Maybe you could class that as digital transformation. I'm going to come down from the business process and I'm going to say, I'm going to go and change this business process. Now let's go and shake out the application tree. And then when you want to run a successful cloud transformation, you want to kind of blend the two. So you want to think about the workflows. You want to think about how they connect to the business. You want to break them down into logical chunks for your business. How you move them kind of is then dependent on the workloads, the actual app teams. Like, what's their transformation? Are they going to move something to SaaS? Do they need to support a line of business app or a COTS application that is only needed once a year? That's the detail that you need to get to drive a successful cloud transformation. And that then means you need to have different conversations about what am I going to do with my workload? Am I going to move it as a rapid migration? Am I going to move it to EC2? Am I going to move my database? And that needs strong application context. I would say we're kind of seeing the conversation with the business move from, it's not really about a migration. It actually is modernization. Now, if you're moving a server from on-premise to the cloud, you're kind of modernizing the hypervisor. Yep. You might be modernizing some of the processes around it. You are still modernizing as part of the migration. You're not just replacing like for like. You've got something new. You've got a new platform you can build on. I see a lot of customers, they will, getting critical mass into the cloud, I kind of talked about really critical. So you might say, look, I'm going on a digital transformation journey. For that, I actually need a cloud platform because I want to go and enable and build new. To do that, like, let's get some cost savings, let's get some process improvements, let's put our toe into the cloud world, let's do maybe a rapid migration for 60% of our workloads. Yep. Off that, let's then build a foundation to, often it's digital, let's go and redo our digital presence and let's think about how that integrates. And we'll go and then actually, more than just modernize that, we'll rethink and we'll start to transform. So you get this kind of nice balance of, I'm modernizing these components, I'm transforming these components, and then you kind of take the next one and do you want to transform it? Does it have business value? If you want to transform everything, I think that's where it kind of like, well, is it actually worth it?
Yeah, look, really interesting point, especially around, say, COTS providers or application providers going on their own journey and modernizing their applications to be able to run as PaaS or SaaS in the cloud, and you're just going to be adjacent now to be able to take advantage of that. A number of times I've seen an application roadmap that's 7 months out. So, okay, we're going to go take advantage of that, but in between, now I have to refresh that hardware or I have to do something different. So I think you're spot on in terms of breaking things into chunks and understanding the business objectives and moving those. You're going to be able to say, let's move this tranche or this business wave into the cloud. I don't necessarily need to transform it. I'm going to modernize it so it can take advantage of what capabilities are provided by the hyperscalers today, but I don't need to do a real heavy uplift. And I'm not going to get the return on investment out of those wave of applications, because in 6 to 12 months, they're going to go to PaaS anyway. So I like that approach. Tim, can you give me your opinion on how the partners can go and help their customers advance and accelerate their journey in?
It's a great question. I think we often get asked it by our customers because cloud's new. So the customers are going, how do I make sure I enable my team? How do I give them the skills? Like, I should get them to do that migrate or modernize phase. What I kind of always talk to them about is, like, we're effectively movers. Like, every day we're helping customers move to the cloud. It's the thing that we do, and that's our profession, helping them get into the cloud. So I'd always encourage customers to use a partner for that journey. And as part of that, we like to integrate your teams, the customers' teams, into those. And they get a really nice, like, safe learning pattern. So learn from someone who does it all the time, understand the cloud. When you start to add that with the training and skills development, and then having someone who's done it many times, it leads to a really great success for the customer, but also really enables their team, and that makes their team feel confident that they can keep going down that journey.
Yeah, and I think it lets the customers as well really focus on the business objectives rather than having to get bogged down in understanding so many different terminologies and features and functions and services that the cloud providers all have to offer. And specifically, I think for enterprise customers, at the start we were talking about, when you're trying to move an individual app or modernize a small subset of workloads, it can be really easy to move it into cloud. But now when you're talking interdependencies between database and apps, and it's pushing out to a data lake, and here's a visualization service, this is something that Versant do every day with their customers. So your organization trying to learn that for the first batch of a few hundred apps going into the cloud can be really daunting. So it's definitely a great piece of advice for people to take on board. Tim, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks. It was great to be here and really looking forward to the continued growth of the partnership.
We have more episodes coming your way. Hope this one around transformation has been really informative. Don't forget to subscribe and like on some of these buttons that are here, there, and everywhere. And if you are looking to test drive Nutanix running in the cloud today, there'll be another link somewhere, probably down below.